Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your weekly astrology forecast for the week of February 23rd to March 1st of 2025. Before I get into the charts here for this week, if you are looking for a reading from me from my Etsy shop, or looking to support me on Ko-Fi through membership or donation, or to join the Discord server, all the links for those are in the description below or in my bio if you are on TikTok. Of course, the easiest and simplest way to help me out is, of course, to just like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, hit that follow button if you're on TikTok. It helps the algorithm push this video to more people. Now, before we get into this week again, as it's kind of a big week, there's multiple things, bigger things kind of going on here, astrologically at least anyway, although likely probably in the world too. Before we get into this, of course, as I do these, I tend to get intuitive guidance and such coming through, which means that anything that I'm saying is, of course, subject to change as we have free will. Now, that's regarding any kind of prediction, right? So any kind of future prediction of event or anything like that, it's always subject to change because of free will. My own guidance is, and always has been, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Meaning, due to the, it's like the location of the planets and stuff, or the natural cycles of the planets relate to the natural cycles of the universe, okay? And there's a vibration there. So what's a vibrational match to natural cycles is what's able to become manifest in a certain specific way relating to those energies, right? So even if a certain specific event or whatever that I'm saying might not actually happen, things that are happening are still likely to surround or will surround the certain vibration or the energies that are existing at that time. All right, this is why we kind of have divine timing and that kind of thing. And while your birth chart represents, you specifically, in order to play the character you were meant to play in this lifetime, you had to come in at a certain time or a certain vibration, certain energy in order to create the actual being or character that you are meant to play in this lifetime. All right, with all that being said, let us get into the charts for this week. We're obviously going to start here on Sunday, February 23rd. Excuse me, okay. And this day, the first thing on the top of my list here is we're going to have Mars coming direct. Now, that doesn't happen until about 8:02 p.m. Central. So I have this chart, because the new moon is happening this week, set at like 6:44 p.m. So we're pretty close to when Mars would be coming direct, but like I said, it's not until the evening on Sunday there. So probably, you'll feel it maybe Sunday night, but mostly on Monday when kind of see or feel the maybe effects of that, energetic effects of that Mars going direct. Now, as I have said with Mars retrograde, this is kind of the masculine energy kind of being forced to look at itself in a certain way, because you have to remember retrogrades are like all the words, like reworking, relooking, redoing, on stuff that you've already known, stuff that you've already been, stuff that's already been, looked at, etc. It's not necessarily a time to start something new, but a time to relook and rework those things. And of course, Mars, as it relates to a lot of masculine energy, Venus relates to maybe feminine energy, I was going to say not like completely, because obviously Mars there's aspects of war and aspects of things there. Venus, there's like material things, whatever, but that does relate to that masculine and feminine vibe, if you want to kind of call it that. But what this is, so as I usually describe this, is we all have both divine masculine and divine feminine energy within all of us. Of course, that's regardless of your physical gender or your sex, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, any of that, right? All that, of course, is still valid 100%. But we all still have both divine masculine and divine feminine energy within all of us. This could relate to, twin flame, divine counterpart stuff, if you're kind of on that vibe. But this, for the most part, is relating to the energies within all of us. Now, as I've talked about this before with this Mars retrograde, in terms of going over how we've considered the masculine to be like previously, right? So a lot of times in our world, we consider, like the patriarchy or this old archetype of masculinity, and how a lot of men that fit into that are kind of douchebags, but like the Andrew Tates of the world or things like that, or it's extremely misogynistic, and where they're thinking that putting one gender above the other, that kind of stuff, that's not right, and it never was right. And that's kind of what this is reworking. And of course, with Mars retrograde, it initially was in Leo, now it's in Cancer, and it's going direct in Cancer. A lot of this was relating to that emotional vulnerability, that aspect of expression of the masculine, and maybe coming into more of that sensitive place. And I talked about vulnerability and stuff like that. I don't know if it was in the last video. It might have been in the last video or the previous video before that too, where I discussed that a bit as well. So if you wanted to check those out, if you're interested in hearing about that. However, Mars will go direct. It's still in shadow period, so you have to remember anything that was re-looked at regarding what I talked about in previous videos, what I've said now, through this time is likely to still come up as Mars now is moving forward. So now we're moving forward in this way, and one thing that kind of just felt coming through there was it to the new. Right? We've gone over those old things. We've realized what they were. We've realized some of that stuff, and now we need to begin to move forward in a new way, where it's not so bad for the masculine to express their emotions, to express their sensitivity, to be vulnerable in that sense as well, right, with that Mars in Cancer. And of course, I talked more on that and other areas in terms of which this was a masculine review of themselves in a lot of ways. So you can check out the previous videos on that, as I assume this will likely be a long video in and of itself, so I'm not going to directly go over all of that here. However, Mars will be coming direct, and interestingly enough, by the end of this week, Venus will be going retrograde, and in Mars's sign of Aries as well. So we'll kind of touch on that as we jump into that energy. All right. Another thing, interestingly, today we're going to have this Mercury in trine to Mars peak. It looks like right before Mars will go direct. So it looks like this is exact 10:57 a.m. Central. So with this trine, especially with Mercury and Pisces, like I talked about this in my last couple of videos, Mercury and Pisces can be a communication of deception, either what has been hidden behind the veil, or you could be trying to deceive someone. So now this may be bringing to awareness, especially with this Mars direct. One thing, okay, there's kind of a couple things. One thing, okay, let's start off with basically what has been hidden in terms of this masculine expression, number one. Number two, what has maybe, like I said, yeah, it's just something hidden. But what has kind of been, there's also an expansion of awareness here that is likely coming through, because you have to remember Jupiter is in Mercury's sign of Gemini, so there's an expansion of awareness of communication. But with, like I said, with Mercury and Pisces, we're dealing with maybe what's been hidden, what's been the deception of that, and maybe the deception through a manipulation in terms of that previous form of that masculine energy. I think that was kind of the vibe that was coming through there. Plus this idea of compassion as well. So you have to remember Pisces is, compassion is part of the vibe of Pisces, and that strong emotional aspect of Pisces, because we're dealing with both two water signs here, basically, right? With Mars here and trine to this place, maybe it's a realization of maybe that more compassionate communication surrounding that masculine energy, but bringing to awareness either maybe that lack of compassion or what's been hidden in terms of it's there, but it hasn't been able to properly express itself. And maybe with this now, with this retrograde, re-looking at that kind of stuff and now coming direct, maybe moving in a new direction of proper expression of that masculine energy, of that emotion, of that compassion, that kind of thing as we move forward. And like I said before in previous videos, that could be towards other people, but that could also be between masculine, if you want to consider it like other men, if you're considering like an old school heteronormative type of behavior, or just between the masculine type of energies, or in terms of people with a masculine expression, finding maybe aspect of more compassion or more vulnerability and the ability to feel more safe around each other, rather than feeling like you have to conform into some form of outdated bullshit ideal that society wants to push on everyone. Right, so that's kind of that. Interestingly enough, Mercury is moving into conjunction to Saturn here, as this trine is going on. And of course, we have this trine as well to Saturn here from Mars. So with this, remember, Saturn teaches through restrictions, because there could be a restriction. But one thing that I'm kind of getting here is old world stuff, right? Saturn, Capricorn is like that structure, like the structures of the world, the rules, the regulations, all of that. And with Pisces, in that mutable sign of Pisces, I consider Saturn and Pisces the dissolution of that malefic energy. So it's dissolving, it's eroding a lot of that stuff, it's changing it, it's making it malleable, right? So it's like these old structures, these old restrictions within that realm of that masculine energy is now becoming dissolved. There's an awareness, maybe more of a communication surrounding what I just talked about, that vulnerability, emotional vulnerability, compassion, that kind of stuff beginning to come through with that masculine energy, right? And these are feminine signs. So we have a feminine energy here helping the masculine in order to heal itself, to come to more into balance with itself, and to be able to express itself in that way, right? Because the feminine has more so been, shall we say, allowed to express itself in that way more than the masculine has. All right, so there's, like I said, that expansion of awareness, especially since Jupiter is in Mercury's sign here, of whatever it is that is coming up there. And in general, like I said last week's video too, and probably the video before with Mercury in Pisces, like I said, it's that revelation of maybe what's been hidden, a communication of that, maybe an expansion of awareness of that. But also it can be deceiving too. Be careful of people trying to manipulate you and deceive you through aspects of communication or awareness or something like that, to try to hide something instead of reveal it or make it aware. Right? There's levels of vibration to this. Okay, so there's certain like vibes to Pisces, but it's like, how are you going to use that? Are you going to use it in a positive way, positive vibration? Or are you coming at it from a lower negative vibration, right? So that's why, even with squares and oppositions in astrology, they don't have to be a bad thing. They can be that push for balance, for resolution, for action that needs to be done. But that can be positive, right? It's only when we allow things to get negative or to appear negative to us, or our perception of it is negative, that we tend to feel it or see it in that way. It doesn't have to be that way at all. So that would be Mercury trine Mars there. Also on this day, we're going to have the Sun in semi-square to Chiron. All right, so Sun in Pisces, semi-square here to Chiron in Aries. I feel like this is kind of relating to that masculine energy again, as well as Mars is ruling Aries, Chiron is here. Not only healing of that, Chiron the wounded healer, of course, so reviewing the wounds of that kind of thing. But I feel like there's this dissolving aspect of this Sun in Pisces, maybe illuminating what's been hidden. But one thing that was coming through was there's like a dissolution, a dissolving of that. Pisces is that mutable sign. Aries is a cardinal sign. So there's like a dissolution and a moving forward. It's like almost healing through the act of compassion in a lot of ways. Maybe with this energy that's coming through, with the Sun here in Pisces illuminating that kind of stuff, and with Chiron and Aries being the wounds and that kind of such that is being illuminated in that way, or illuminating what needs to be dissolved in our actions through that area of masculinity. This can also be our individuality, our sovereignty, that kind of stuff as well. We're also going to have Mercury here in semi-square to Pluto in Aquarius. So I feel like, especially what I talked about surrounding this Mars energy, Mars retrograde energy, regarding that masculine energy, that this is pushing maybe through that awareness and aspect of change. Individuality, that expression of individuality, but change in that sense as well. Pushing for that change, that resolution regarding moving that masculine into that better state, the more compassionate state, where it's more balanced, it's more expressive, it's able to express itself appropriately and properly instead of trying to fit into some outdated bullshit of masculinity. Right? So we're building transform, change, shake things up from what we knew to where we're actually going. Right? Like if you want to talking about like ascension or new earth or that kind of stuff, or even if you just want to consider it an ascending to a higher vibration, a higher frequency, well, in order to get there, we have to ditch our old ways. We have to go over those old things, say this isn't working anymore, release that and move higher. And that's an aspect of change. realizing uniqueness, individuality, all of that. And that, yes, the masculine energy can express in an emotional and vulnerable way, and that is not weak. Okay, people believe that the feminine energy is weak. Feminine energy is not fucking weak. I'm sorry, it's not fucking weak. You want to know a sign that's feminine? Scorpio. You think Scorpio's fucking weak? Scorpio's the only goddamn sign that's gonna lay it out to you completely fucking bluntly, straightforwardly, and put it in your face and be like, yeah, that's how it is. You need to face this in order to transform. Scorpio, the sign of transformation, rules death and sex. What gets you into this world, what gets you out of this world. But that's nothing to fear, right? It's transformation. It's moving from one phase to another. But it's also facing what you have to face. In order to heal something that's within you, you have to have that ability to transform, to face it, to heal it, to transform. That is extremely powerful energy. But what that involves is an extreme amount of vulnerability and facing what you have to face. And it takes a lot of courage and strength to do that, right? So for the masculine, if you want to have that real courage and strength, that also means that you need, when facing what you need to face, you need to be vulnerable. You need to be in that state when you need to be in that state. Of course, that's not all the time for everyone, but there are times when you need to be vulnerable. That aspect of vulnerability is also immensely there in an act of intimacy. Whether it's sexual intimacy or just getting deep with someone through an intimate conversation or something like that. In order to dive deep, in order to really connect with someone, whether I said that sexually or otherwise, in that sense, it requires that aspect of deep vulnerability, that amount of intimacy for true intimacy in order to exist, and not just like surface level BS, right? Like, there's some people that can have sex with someone and it's so surface level that there's no real actual intimacy there. You don't even have to be in a relationship to experience that deep level of intimacy. It can still exist. It's just you have to allow that aspect of vulnerability to come through in that way. And Scorpio does rule that aspect of intimacy, but intimacy on all levels, so deep, on such multiple levels, that you have to be able to allow yourself to be in that vulnerable space to experience the true level of intimacy that can come with that Scorpio energy. So again, feminine energy is not weak. It's not weak at all. That's a completely false perception that was pushed against the feminine, because the feminine is what rules our intuition, that outer knowledge. So I burped there, so pay attention to what's coming through here. As if people don't know, when that happens, usually the guide's saying, okay, this is important. So it's that feminine energy is what that intuitive aspect, getting in touch with what's beyond us, that inner knowing or that higher knowing of certain things that are maybe not physical within our reality. It's seeing the unknown, seeing through the veil, seeing through the bullshit in a lot of ways. So you wonder why that's been suppressed in our world, in our society? I don't know, maybe to cover things up so that people can get away with bullshit and enslave people and do all this other stuff and manipulate people into believing stuff that isn't actually real so that they can get away with it. Yeah. Feminine energy is very powerful fucking energy. It's very powerful energy. It can see through BS like absolutely nothing. Okay, when you can properly connect to your intuition, properly connecting to the right things, properly learning and knowing that understanding, it is very powerful energy. Masculine energy is powerful energy too, but they're both equally powerful, just in different ways. Okay, just because something is different doesn't mean it's a greater than or less than the other. Okay, it just makes it different. That's all that it is. And I think that's something that we need to begin to realize, especially with Pluto and Aquarius and that kind of stuff, dealing with your uniqueness, your individuality. Just because you may be different or just because somebody else is different doesn't mean that you or them or one is better than the other. It just means you're different. You are still both equal. Everyone is still both equal. We are all fractals of Source Creator. We are all fractals of Source on a soul level, which means you are a piece of God incarnate. If you want to call it that. If you don't want to use the word God, you are a piece of Source Creator incarnate. Right? I know God can be triggering for a lot of people because of religious trauma and religious BS. And I totally understand that. Trust me, I do. So we'll deal with Source. And the word, yeah, I'm not going to get into what I was going to say. That's a deep rabbit hole I don't want to talk about right now. But, yeah. Okay, so we've never needed an intermediary. You've just needed to get in touch with your own feminine side to connect higher. That's all. Right? These energies, masculine and feminine energies, are supposed to be working in harmony together within all of us to create that unification, right? And of course, like I said, that's in everyone. That's in absolutely everyone, regardless of your gender identity, sexual orientation, whatever. All of that is still valid. That was the character you meant to play in this life. If you have a different gender expression than your physical sex, or if you're transgender, or if you're different sexual orientation, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's you. That's 100% you, and that's all valid, right? We shouldn't be hating on anyone for any of those things. That's all 100% valid. Okay, anything is possible. We can create and be whatever we want to be. Your soul chose to play that character before it incarnated for whatever reason. Likely to have a certain experience, or to learn a certain thing, or to even just to shake things up in the world around you, to show that anything is possible. To be straight out physical evidence that, yeah, these things can exist and these old beliefs are nothing but fucking bullshit, right? You could have come for a reason like that. Right? Or there could be another purpose beyond it. But, like, yeah. Anyways, let's just move on. I'm going to start yakking and talking, and this video is going to be so damn long, I'm not going to be able to get to, the actual astrology here. Okay. So let's move on to Monday the 24th. And it looks like on Monday the 24th, according to my list here, nothing major is peaking on Monday. So there you go. Of course, we can see here now in the chart that Mars is indeed now direct. All right, so let's move on to Tuesday the 25th here. Okay, so this is when we're going to have this Mercury conjunct Saturn. So I feel like what's coming through now, and what kind of came through before I started recording here surrounding this, is that with, like I said, with the Mercury in Pisces, excuse me, okay, maybe pay attention to what I'm saying here. With this Mercury in Pisces, is that it can be revealing of that which is hidden. Especially we've got Jupiter in Gemini in Mercury sign, so this is kind of playing the vibe. So there's an expansion of awareness of communication here in terms of maybe what's been hidden, manipulations, deceptions, all that kind of stuff. And with Saturn, that's the restrictions through those kinds of things. So how we have been restricted or controlled, or those rules in place that have been put place that have been manipulative, deceptive, all that kind of stuff, or how we've been restricted through manipulations, deceptions, all of those kinds of things, maybe becoming more expansive in our awareness, right? That's eroding away now with that Saturn and Pisces type of energy. Okay, we're dealing with a mutable sign here, of course, Mercury ruling actually two mutable signs, Gemini and Virgo. Right, so we're dealing with strong, mutable, eroding type of energy here. And Capricorn is, of course, a cardinal sign, but this could be eroding this stuff to move in a new direction, in a new solid foundation, and for new structures, new rules, regulations, all of that kind of stuff, as the old ones get eroded away because they were based off of lies, manipulation, falsities, etc. Of course, anything surrounding Saturn can feel a bit harsh. It can feel a bit, Saturn is where our growth lies. If you're looking specifically in a birth chart, that's where Saturn is, where you need to expand. It's where growth occurs. Teaches through restriction, because that's where you need to expand, where you need to grow. That's where you wanted to experience growth in this lifetime. Okay, that's why you kind of chose the character you're meant to play. So with Saturn in whatever sign, house, etc., that's where you're meant to grow, expand, learn. Maybe that's, like you could have experienced other things in other lifetimes. In this lifetime, maybe that all builds up into whatever your Saturn is in this one. I don't know. Hitting the mic stand here, okay? But like that's where the growth occurs. So, and sometimes, people don't like growth and lessons and understanding that kind of thing because it's too harsh for them. It's too hard. They don't want to change or expand or whatever. It's like, well, too fucking bad. You got to do it. We got to learn and grow and expand, and it's Pluto and Aquarius, guys. Like we're at this phase now where energetically we're going to see a lot of this transformation and change, and a really strong push for that. And for the next, basically 20 years, Pluto isn't going to leave Aquarius till 2044. Get used to it. 100% get used to change, this vibration of change and intense change, and shaking things up, and etc. Decentralization. Like I said, with South Node and Virgo, what we've known to be practical isn't going to be practical anymore. Another thing that's kind of coming through here, I'm being reminded of, because with the South Node in Virgo and Mercury rules over this area, it can feel like a constant Mercury retrograde. With that Mercury conjunct Saturn, especially with that South Node in Virgo feeling like the constant Mercury retrograde, this could be a release or a revealing of those old control structures, mechanisms, and things that have been hidden, that is related to those aspects of deception that we do need to let go of. Well, again, what we thought was once practical isn't going to be that way anymore. We're moving into a new realm, new direction, new ways. We're moving into the unknown, complete unknown, right? Where we've never been before. But that involves a dissolution of these old things. I think what I was talking about with this conjunction is that it can feel tough. Like anything with Saturn can feel tough. But you have to put in the work to, learn the lesson, to grow, to expand. And ultimately, that's what that is. And that's collectively what we're going to have to do, what we're going to have to face. There's no avoiding a lot of this stuff anymore. It's like we're just going to have to deal with it, right? And especially with Pluto in Aquarius, this is dealing with a large sense of community, or even community on a global level. Whereas it's like we're going to have to learn to work together. We're going to have to learn that everyone in their uniqueness all connects together, or fits together in some way, regardless of what that is, right? And that the division and all of that is nothing but a deception, right? It's nothing but a deception and a manipulation that we've been forced and manipulated into in order to keep us fighting each other, instead of us coming together and learning to love each other for our true uniqueness, individuality, etc., and as the true human collective, right? All right. So we're also going to have Mercury in semi-sextile to Chiron. So again, I feel like with this conjunction to Saturn, as well as now with the semi-sextile to Chiron, this is dealing, this could be triggering. Whatever is coming up here could be triggering. Whatever this restriction is that is now being dissolved, coming into our awareness that is coming through here. Again, with Chiron, this could deal with our wounds to self, wounds to sovereignty is a word that's coming through. Sovereignty, freedom, that aspect of freedom, and how we may have been deceived in that way somehow. And this could be on a larger global scale. This could be on an individual scale. This could happen in multiple ways, right? And however this lands in your chart, whatever its aspecting house it's in, etc., is how it'll be affecting you. However, it could be related to the themes that I'm talking about, but maybe happen in a different way, other than maybe how I'm talking about. But you need a personal reading to get that. And of course, it doesn't have to be with me, but you can get. But the best way for you to understand how the astrology is directly affecting you is adding this, looking at this through your own chart, right? That's the only way you're going to get it like exactly for you, because you're a unique individual person. Okay, you need to look at your unique individual chart to see how this is going to be directly affecting you in your life. However, that's just energetically from that energetic template form in terms of what is conducive to becoming manifest within that specifically for you, right? How I'm doing this now is through mundane astrology, through what's coming through maybe collectively kind of for everyone as a general type of energy. And I think what we're going to be seeing generally in the world, all right, on that kind of a level. However, what's specifically going to be for you, you have to relate this to your own chart and do that in that way. Okay, so again, the semi-sextile, I feel like this is energy that is working together. So a semi-sextile can kind of go one of two ways. It can be working together, or it can be kind of detrimental towards each other. However, I kind of feel like this is working together because of this dissolution of malefic energy in terms of Saturn and Pisces. But with this Chiron here, regarding healing those wounds, like I said, of freedom, of sovereignty, of that individuality. But I'm also feeling just like it's wounds of self in a lot of ways, of identity, even in a lot of ways too. But it's mostly like wounds of self, but it's all of us as individuals, but individuals in however sense of the word you want to say that. In terms of whatever this restriction has been that is now coming into our awareness, maybe through, whatever deception has occurred or has happened in some way like that, right? Also, on this day, we're going to have Mercury in this biquintile to Black Moon Lilith in Libra. So what I'm hearing now is surrounding aspects of justice. But okay, so Black Moon Lilith in Libra, this is where we've been outcast in terms of, other people, or Libra is aspects of justice, balance, that kind of thing. So feeling like an aspect of justice, but with this biquintile, this is putting in like the behind the scenes work. This could also feel like fate coming through, but again, as I've said before, it's like you create your fate, right? So fate coming through in some way possibly, but again, that's what we've created coming through. This is very strong feminine energy though with the biquintile. I can feel very creative, like I said, very behind the scenes kind of a vibe, whether it's happening behind the scenes now or has happened behind the scenes previously and is now coming through in this way, right? So, but I feel like there's an aspect of what I'm feeling is injustice coming through with this in terms of feeling outcast in a lot of ways. But it's almost like there's a feminine energy here that is helping us in that behind the scenes way through whatever this revelation or awareness is coming through, whether big or small, regardless of how this is big or small. Coming through here in terms of maybe whatever this is healing through our wound of identity and such too. But I feeling with this, there's a lack of justice or injustices surrounding this, especially with this Mercury conjunct Saturn regarding whatever that restriction and deception was or is in our lives, in the world, whatever. Right? So, all right, that's Tuesday the 25th. Let's move on to Wednesday here, the 26th. And again, nothing actually major peaking on this day on Wednesday, which is good because we still have a lot more to cover here. So let's move on to Thursday the 27th. Of course, this is when we're going to have this new moon in Pisces. Of course, new moon in Pisces, new lunar month. One thing that is coming through now, reminding me, thank you, is that we are now heading into eclipse season. So the next part of this lunar cycle, which would be that full moon in Virgo, will be a full moon lunar eclipse. All right, so we are heading into eclipse season now. We are, by the end of this week, going to be in Mercury pre-shadow. So we're heading into that now. So we're going to have, there's lots of kind of shifts and changes. March, we're going to have two eclipses. So the first one is March 14th, and then I believe March 29th. We're going to have the lunar eclipse and then the solar eclipse. All right, so yeah, we're heading there now. And with Pisces, I'm trying to tap into what this feels like. It just feels, it almost feels like we're not going to know. It just feels new to me, ultimately. I feel like it's surrounding like the similar vibe to what I said with that North Node in Pisces. We're heading into the unknown. It's like, this is something, it's like dissolving is kind of what I feel. It's like Pisces is like that, like I said, is with Saturn and Pisces, the dissolution of that malefic energy, but Pisces is a mutable water sign. So it's like, it's that, and it's a mutable sign. So it's that changeableness of this, right? We're heading into that mutable, changing. It's like we're flowing into something new. Through that flow is creating something new. It's like how a river, erodes the earth. It paves that path. It's creating a new path, creating something new through the terrain. But it's doing through that flowing, through that erosion, through that mutable aspect of like change, eroding that new path in some way. But it's sometimes that can be a straight path, sometimes it can be a winding path. It's wherever it needs to go, right? And that's kind of what I feel this vibe is. It's like it feels like Pisces to me, like very strong Pisces. And I know I think I said this in like it's the last video or the video before that with the sun coming into Pisces. I was like, oh, it just feels like Pisces. And some people watching it are probably like, well, what the fuck does that mean? But it's like, this is really hard to articulate sometimes in terms of how I feel. Sometimes I wish I could just like be like, hey, just feel what I'll pass my feelings on to you so that you can understand what the hell it is that this is or what I'm trying to say. Because sometimes you can't like articulate this properly into words. But it's just new moon in Pisces. It's like, it feels very feminine, very flowing, like dissolving, like I said. It's kind of like change, but not in the same way as Aquarius. It's like, it's Pisces is anything. There's no boundaries to Pisces at all. It's like the endless ocean. It's like there's no boundaries at all. So it's like it can be anything. It can flow in any direction. It's like it's like that aspect of creation. Right? It's like we're flowing into a new realm, a new space, and we may not know how the fuck we're even going to get there, or how we're getting there, or we're in it, but we don't know what's going on. It's like that seeing through the veil, or that Piscean or Neptunian fog, right? It's like you're in the fog, and you know, like maybe you're looking at a GPS or something, and you know, okay, I'm heading in this direction, but I can't see what the fuck is in front of me, or where I'm going, or if that's even the direction I'm going in. I just have to trust what this is telling me. I just have to have that trust and faith and just go with it. That's kind of that vibe. It's like we're probably going to feel like we're in it, we're in something, but we're not going to know what the fuck it really is until the fog lifts, until we're on the other side, until, you know, you follow the GPS to where you're going to need to go and be like, oh shit, I was on the right path. Thank fucking whatever for that, right? Like that's the vibe of Pisces, right? That's what this kind of feels like to me. And I kind of like that. I feel like it's that creative flow, that creative energy, that aspect of faith, trust. Just go and enjoy the adventure. Just trust and have faith and trust where it's going to take you, because it's like there's kind of that aspect of adventure there, but it's like it's that unknown, that curiosity, that it's like, okay, well, let's, see where this is going to take us. Okay, so maybe pay attention to that, see where this is going to take us, because you don't know where the river is going to wind to next, right? It's kind of that aspect that's coming through here. So that's kind of like this new moon in Pisces, very strong Piscean energy, signaling, you know, this lunar month, and surrounding that aspect of eclipse season as well. But we'll get more to the eclipses when we get to that time. But this is signaling that, yeah, we're in a new lunar month, and in that lunar month is eclipses. All right, we're heading into kind of like that time of fate. And of course, we're dealing with Pisces too, that rules spirituality, that aspect of trust, faith, fate, all of that. But again, you create your fate. Pisces is also the sign of creativity. You create your fate, okay? Because you were, on a soul level, you were powerful enough to create the character of you that you wanted to play in this lifetime, and to come and incarnate as that, okay? You are a powerful creator. It's that creative thing. But that's what comes from that non-physical aspect, that spiritual realm that comes through in that way. So this is very strong, powerful, creative, flowing, feminine energy. And just moving into whatever direction you feel guided to go in, kind of in a lot of ways. And like I said, we may not know where the fuck we're going, but we're going to end up at the right place at the end. It's kind of the vibe that I'm getting with that, all right? Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury in sextile to Uranus in Taurus. So Mercury here approaching the end of Pisces, in sextile to Uranus there in Taurus. So this could come out as some maybe shocking communication, awakening type of communication surrounding, one thing I was getting through is maybe money, because we are sitting in Taurus, Venus energy surrounding those material things, money, right? And maybe certain deception or whatever surrounding that, or something shocking, something that has been hidden, or maybe something that the fog lifts in some way and we're finally realizing, oh fuck, that's what this means. Oh fuck, what's going on? Right? Or aspects of shifts and changes surrounding that. This could be like earthly things that are shifting and changing in that sense as well, coming into that expansion of awareness of maybe what's been hidden in some way. And that's awakening in a lot of ways surrounding these aspects of these big changes that are needing to occur. Although I'm feeling like in a lot of ways, this Taurus energy now with Uranus here, with all the craziness that is going on in the world, it's maybe people are finally realizing that, yeah, we need to fucking change. Learning to really see the actual value in change, right? Because that's what Uranus and Taurus really is helping us to see, the value in change, and that we need to change. And Pluto is in Aquarius, Uranus' sign, giving power to that aspect of change, transformation, facing what we have to face. And of course, this is bringing that into our awareness now, maybe in terms of what has been hidden in our awareness. And now it's like, oh, fuck, well, or we're just, it's almost like, okay, well, we're just going to have to go with it now. It's like that Pisces going with that flow type of energy. It's like, fuck this, I'm tired of like, there's so much shit going on. I'm just going to have to go with it. Like, I don't have a choice anymore. And in a lot of ways, that's how it's going to end up being, in terms of the changes that need to occur, is that we're not going to have a choice anymore. It's just going to fucking happen. And that could be kind of what that flowing vibe kind of is coming through here. Right? We're also going to have Saturn here now, and it's direct semi-sextile to Chiron. This can deal very much with wounds to, again, what's coming through is sovereignty, surrounding those aspects of restriction, rules, control, that kind of stuff. Whether it's hitting in terms of we feel wounded in that way, or whether we're healing that wound through that dissolution of that malefic energy, or whether through, if we're being wounded, we're seeing it for what it is behind the veil in terms of that Pisces energy, right? Maybe coming to the surface, seeing that there's a deception, or whatever that restriction is or rules are is a deception in some way, and that's ultimately what's wounding us, because we're not able to see what it actually is in some way. But maybe there is an awareness coming through here with that Mercury now sextile to, Uranus and Taurus, with that Mercury conjunct Saturn. We have Jupiter and Mercury's sign. We have the South Node in Mercury's other sign. There's stuff that could be coming up into our awareness and expansion of all that awareness that we just got to realize we got to fucking let go of, so we can move forward and create a new path, move into the unknown, trust that we're going to be led in the right direction. But the thing is, when I say being led in the right direction, it's us leading the way. It's not someone coming to save us, right? No one's going to come to save us, okay? We have to save ourselves. And I think part of that lesson is realizing that we've had the power this entire time, that we've all had the power within us. It's just that we've been led to believe that we haven't, whether that's through religions, other old outdated belief systems, things like that that were meant to manipulate us and control us through fear and guilt and all those other things, to make us powerless, instead of empowering ourselves to know that we have the ability to change and create our reality and make it how we want to make it, instead of manipulate it into believing bullshit and just thinking that that's the way that it is, and just giving into fear and like whatever else, right? So again, this could be a triggering moment, but there's this dissolution of whatever restriction that is trying to, so with this kind, it's almost like dissolving this restriction or that control or that structure is freeing us and allowing us to be in that space of sovereignty, etc., in terms of our individual selves. But I'm just feeling an aspect of sovereignty, honestly. I don't know specific. I think it's like that aspect of, because Aries is like the individual, but it's that individual to do kind of what you want. It's also that Mars energy to do what you desire, what you want, to take action on what you want. And I feel like that plays into that realm, or that idea of sovereignty, which is why that's kind of coming through here, that aspect of freedom of sovereignty to take action in whatever way that you want to and not be restricted or hurt in that way. Okay, so I kind of feel like that's what that vibe kind of is there. All right, and that's it for Thursday the 27th there. So let's move on to Friday, February 28th, the last day of the month. I always think February is the weirdest fucking month ever, but it is what it is, I guess. Okay, so we're going to have Venus in square to... What? Oh no. That's just this doing this weird thing. I don't have Venus, ignored that I said that. The little app that I used to seeing what's like peaking here also shows shifts in waxing and waning of the aspects, and it recently started doing this, which is just completely throwing me off of what I'm trying to do with the videos and what I'm trying to say here. So just ignore that. Move on to Friday or the 28th, where we are going... Okay, so sorry about that. I don't know when the video actually ended. I know I was talking about Friday the 28th. We're going to try this again. So I don't know what happened. Everything completely froze and locked up, and I had to reboot and come back to recording this. So I apologize. I do apologize because I like to do these fully, like in one take, and to do it like so that you see like exactly how I'm doing it and what is coming through as I go. I don't really like doing a lot of editing to this. Basically all I do is basically cut off the beginning and the end, like so you don't see me like sitting there clicking to start the recording and end it and everything. And that's all I really do, right? Unless for some reason something happens and I have to get up and leave and come back, or whatever, or something like this happens. But I don't like that. I mean, I understand shit happens, right? But I don't like it when that happens, because I like to keep not only remaining in the flow to get this coming through, but also keep the consistency, and that you get to actually see it as it comes and what's happening, instead of making it look like I'm editing this for some reason or whatever. That's not really what this is. I edit it because I have to, not because I want to. Not to say video editing is bad. You can use it in a lot of creative ways that are good ways, but it can also be extremely deceptive as well, in terms of, people making it seem like you're saying something that you're actually not, or changing the vibe and cutting things out, putting things in, etc. Okay, anyways, we'll get back here to Friday, February 28th. Hopefully, I'm kind of annoyed, so hopefully things will be coming through all right. I'm sorry, we'll be ending this video where I'm annoyed instead of in the flow like I was before. Disappointing, but whatever. Okay, so on this day, I think what I was talking about was the Sun in semi-sextile to Venus. Here, where Venus she's about to basically go retrograde on March 1st. So if we have a look here, I think what I was trying to do was pull this up. Let's go here. So yeah, you can see she's basically stopped, barely moving, like 1 to 2 minutes a day. Okay, not even close to a degree. So she's basically stopped here, because I know she does go retrograde the following day. I don't know exactly what looks like later in the day on Saturday, so makes sense that not quite fully stopped, but pretty damn fucking close. Okay, so with this Sun in semi-sextile to Venus, I almost felt like it was like endings and beginnings. The reason why I say that, and well, I felt it coming through, but because we're dealing with a mutable sign and a cardinal sign. Okay, Sun in Pisces, mutable energy, Venus in Aries, a cardinal sign. Now, what's this of? Well, relationships is one thing that was coming through. So what's this beginning and an ending of? It's kind of like relationships, and maybe even other Venus-related themes, as Venus does rule Taurus. This could deal with certain things like that. But one thing that I'm kind of feeling like with is people, especially with the Venus retrograde, we could see more layoffs and things like that coming up. People changing from people, right? Like in terms of the people in our lives, those aspects could be changing as well. There could be a major letting go of certain things, or a major realization of the people in our lives, and what maybe could be even coming back to us in a lot of ways too. Because when we think about it with retrogrades, it's kind of where we've been before. So it could have been like an old relationship, but maybe it fires back up again. Or you're in a relationship and it lets go, right? So it's like a retrograde, all the re-words, right? But I feel like prior to this, with the semi-sextile, it's like there's something highlighting here and ending, and then maybe a new beginning in some way. Okay, and I feel like this is pushing in towards the start of whatever this Venus retrograde is likely to be here coming through. And when I go to tomorrow's day, because I mean this is the only thing really for this day on Friday, so we'll head to tomorrow, which isn't really tomorrow. It's tomorrow as I'm doing this video, but it's not tomorrow as I'm recording it. It's probably not tomorrow as you're watching it. So it'll be tomorrow as in it will be when it's March 1st. Okay. So when we go to the next day is when we'll talk about this a bit more. Okay, but yeah, I just feel like this is highlighted. This again, sun illuminating, but it's like there's endings and beginnings. It's like there's a beginning, but there's a change that's occurring here. I don't know. Sun semi-sextile Venus. Yeah, something's changing. Like I said, it's an ending and a beginning, whether something's changing. We may not see it coming. But it's surrounding these Venus-related, it's surrounding the Venus retrograde, these Venus-related themes. Of course, in Aries, that surrounding aspect of our independence self within the relationship, finding appropriate balance within that, but not forgetting our self and our identity within that. That's what's strongly coming through with this Venus in Aries specifically. Of course, Venus in Aries can mean other things, but that's what I'm feeling that is coming through specifically surrounding this round of Venus in Aries, okay? And yeah, that's all I'm getting is kind of the endings and beginnings that we may not completely see coming. Some people might see it coming, those who can see through the veil and understand, connect intuitively, etc. But there might be a lot of people that won't see it coming because they're stuck in an old way of thinking, of practicality, etc. with the South Node here in Virgo kind of thing, whereas we need to move into the unknown and move into where it's basically just there's a lot of change that's occurring here. There's that vibe surrounding this, and I feel like it's just there's something that needs to be reworked involving whatever this is, and these two signs are working together to kind of push that. Although I kind of feel like that it's like they are but they aren't. This may be like there may be more negative aspect of a semi-sextile, where it's like the energies of the two signs exist, but maybe we feel in a sense that they're not working together because it's like it's just the vibe that I feel. It almost feels like whatever it is, it's like maybe it's something we've not known or something we haven't wanted to face or something surrounding, but it's aspect of our own identity, ourself within relationships. It may be something that we've done or something that, I don't know, there's an odd vibe here, but it may not be something that maybe we want to look at. And maybe that's what's been hidden, is because we haven't wanted to look at it, so it's veiled, it's covered, right? I'm kind of being drawn to this sesqui-square here that's likely building between this Black Moon Lilith and the Sun. That maybe plays an aspect of this where we've been outcast in terms of our relationships and what needs to be healed there, or there could be an aspect of that coming through. And it's something, remember, when we're dealing with a sesqui-square, a sesqui-quadrate, it's something that can't be swept under the rug any longer. Another thing is this trine building into Mars here as well, that's now direct, and Mars of course ruling Aries. It's this tie between this masculine and feminine energy. But it's that idea of, like I said, we're moving into the new, and it was how this masculine was looking at and reworking and re-looking at all those old things, and it needs to change, but how it's changing, and we're beginning to move forward. Or relook at those things, but now with Mars direct, it's some kind of more like moving forward on those things. But it's surrounding like. With this, it's more like compassion and understanding and moving forward. With this semi-sextile, it's like something's changing. But with Venus in Mars's sign, it's like it's tied together in some way. I'm feeling to kind of maybe let's move to March 1st, the following day, and really try to tap into this Venus retrograde, because I think that's probably something that is kind of just where we need to go right now. So, move on to Saturday, March 1st. Let's talk about Venus retrograde first and what's peaking and everything going on, and then we're going to talk about Mercury shadow. All right, so let's have a look here let's have a look here at Venus retrograde, okay? So Venus is going to go retrograde at 6:37 p.m. So on this chart, it would have just gone retrograde basically a few minutes prior. Okay, so Venus in Aries. So Venus in retrograde vibes. Let's see if we can feel. There's an aspect of sovereignty surrounding, but it's dealing with other people. How this deals with other people in our lives, but also our own sovereignty at the same time. Remember, Venus retrogrades as we're dealing with people, relationships. Like I said, it could be a letting go, but it could be a resurgence of maybe a previous relationship in some way. But this is relating to our individuality within a said relationship or relationships, and how we can express that. Are we able to be an individual within a relationship, or are we just giving in to the other person? Right? So this is dealing a lot with that aspect of, independence, individuality, etc. Okay? And I feel like that's maybe more on like a personal level in terms of how a lot of people are going to be feeling this. Am I able to tap into like a greater like socioeconomic political level? It's like people changing. Is people changing? I don't understand. People changing. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm getting like I want to say frantic, or like a ruckus surrounding like people. And maybe it relates to that action-oriented aspect of that Aries type of energy. But there could be an aspect of change. Like I said, it could possibly relate to more layoffs in terms of whatever coming, surrounding aspects of independence. Now, what I mean by that is independence in terms of a company. I don't know if that's making any sense here, but that's kind of how that felt. It's almost like the vibe I get is the company doesn't give a fuck about you. They only care about themselves and their own independence. It's kind of what I feel like that. And they're doing whatever they have to do, and they don't really give a shit. That's kind of what... It's not really anything to laugh about, but it's just funny because for me, it's like something that I've always known. Corporations are fucking assholes. Well, most of them are anyway. I'm sure there's some good companies out there. The smaller businesses are the smaller ones, likely, but the bigger ones are just cunts in a lot of ways. Like, it's just how it is. And that's kind of how that feels. But mostly... Let's just see if I can tune in Venus retrograde in general. Yeah, same vibe in Aries. They're surrounding it. There's a vibe of like independence versus other people. The self versus others, but within a relationship. And in the sign of Aries, it's the really more so like the focus on the self. Now, in my corporation example, that was a very narcissistic, selfish kind of way of dealing with that energy because they're fucking assholes. However, maybe on an individual level or from a higher vibrational level or higher plane, this could deal a lot with our self or identity within relationships. Like, are we letting other people, or like the Libra vibe, kind of like overrun us, where we're losing our sense of identity, self, sovereignty, etc.? Or are we allowing our identity of self to come through within our relationships in that way? Okay, so that's kind of that balance and that vibe that is coming through. And something that else that's coming through here is having the strength and the confidence to actually be our authentic true self within those relationships as well, in terms of that coming through. Okay, because now we're kind of having this Mars and Venus vibe, kind of maybe these energies maybe kind of playing off each other. Mars is now direct, Venus is now retrograde. But with Venus retrograde, we're having a look at maybe the confidence that is needed to maybe express our true authentic self in that way. And that could be even, like I said, that authentic masculine that is coming through here, pay attention to that has relearned, reworked, all that kind of stuff in terms of being more compassionate, understanding, etc. But are we now able to express ourselves from that individual perspective within our relationships, within those relationships now, and maybe needing to rework and relook at a lot of that stuff in terms of a new maybe expression of not only our own masculine energy, but maybe if you are expressing as masculine, in whatever way that is, in terms of how you do that, and maybe how that has been relooked at, reworked, and changed in some way as well, that is coming through there, is kind of the vibe that I'm getting with that. I know I'm feeling almost kind of like an intensity to this. I think what I'm just kind of feeling with that is because we're dealing with Aries energy, we're dealing with that Mars energy, the very masculine, action-oriented, fiery type of vibe, with this Venus retrograde, that could make this seem, maybe the word that I'm kind of thinking about more is like, I want to say like chaotic, but intensity in terms of maybe a more chaotic way, just simply because I think we're dealing with other people, right? And how it can get chaotic, especially when we're trying to assert our sense of self and our own sense of sovereignty with others, right? And when other people aren't used to that, it can create that aspect of chaos. It's like when you set a boundary with someone where they're used to taking advantage of you because you don't set a boundary, and then it kind of creates that chaos where they're going to push back at you, right? Until eventually you're like, fuck you, no, like this boundary is in place. Okay, so it's kind of like that in terms of what that chaotic vibe is, just in terms of dealing with other people. Now we have to remember that when we're dealing with this aspect of self within our relationships, that we have to allow the other to express themselves and their true identity and authenticity for who they are as well. Okay, it's not just a one-way thing, it's a two-way street. But we need to understand and represent their aspect of self, but balance it out in terms of allowing the other to do the same. Right? And that of course leads to not necessarily compromise, but because the old concept is, oh, you have to compromise, you have to give in to the other person, blah, 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 blah. But it's almost like, no, I should be able to do me and you should be able to do you, and we'll just do it. Right? We can still love each other in that way. We can do what we want. It's like moving into a new realm, a new idea, a new perspective of things in a lot of ways in terms of reworking this. Because it's like I said, what is deemed as practical with the South Node in Virgo isn't going to be practical any longer as we're moving in a new unknown direction. Right? There's a lot in terms of the manipulations of the world, society, etc. that we've never really been able to be our true authentic selves in a lot of ways, because we've never been able to fully express that, because we've just been manipulated into believing otherwise, right? So as what we thought was practical and all that stuff tends to disappear, we're going to have to move in a new direction where we're really going to have to take a look at ourselves. We're going to have to take a look at our individuality, sovereignty, our own freedom, etc., and see how we're going to do this and moving forward in a new direction, and what's actually real for us instead of what we've been told and manipulated into believing. Okay, so I don't know, that's something that's coming through there, that's for sure. So that kind of feels like that's the vibe of this Venus retrograde. So just be mindful of that kind of stuff. So we're dealing with South Node in Virgo, which can deal with like a constant Mercury retrograde. We're having Mercury that's actually entering shadow on this day as well. We'll talk about that at the end here. And we're having Venus now retrograde. So look, Mars is now direct, but still in shadow. So it's like we're heading into eclipse season. Like it's kind of like running over all the speed bumps right now, okay? So let's, yeah. Also on this day, we're going to have Mercury here in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith here in Libra. So Mercury here is also going to be in conjunct the North Node and opposition the South Node on this day as well. So I feel like this is highlighting maybe our direction forward in terms of maybe what has been revealed behind the veil or where we're going. We're heading in a new direction where maybe we're realizing certain manipulations of our world, society in terms of control structures, etc. And we're just heading into an unknown phase and where we really have to let go of what we've known. And there's maybe an integration that needs to occur here, maybe where we felt outcasted in terms of other people. And what's coming through is also injustices, like I said as well. But there's a frustration here and an integration that needs to be occurred. It's like we're really frustrated with maybe what we've been led to believe previously and the direction, maybe the unknown direction that we're heading in because we're not too sure, but ultimately we need to move in a new direction because we have to integrate these injustices in some way and let go of things. There's an aspect of change that's really still occurring here that will likely continue to occur, like I said, with Pluto and Aquarius. But the transformation and change that's like slowly, shifting and dissolving in terms of we're headed in a new unknown direction. But what I mean is unknown direction is it's just something that we've never seen before, right? It's something that we've never seen before. And I don't feel like it's a bad thing. I feel like it's a good thing. It's just that we may not see the forest through the trees, right? That phrase can be like very negative, but what I mean by that is like the ability to maybe, or how do I say this? Because Pisces, that Neptunian energy is like the fog, right? We're in the fog. We're moving forward. We're in the fog. We're moving into the unknown. We're not really knowing where we're going yet. We haven't reached the clearing yet. The fog hasn't lifted yet. We're still kind of there, but there's this awareness of deception. There's awareness of we need to move in a new direction even though it is unknown because of what's coming into our awareness of maybe where we've been and how we've been deceived and this control and all this other crap and whatever else, that it's like, what the fuck is going on, right? There's kind of like the vibe to this that like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's not anything that any of us have really been used to, okay? And now we're heading into these new spaces, new directions, etc., but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But with this opposition to the South Node, as well as looking at what we need to let go of in terms of what has been practical, what we have known, and the direction in which we're moving forward in a lot of ways here as well. All right. Also on this day is going to be, like I said, so Mercury in quincunx to Black Moon Lilith, and then the Sun, pull it off of Mercury here, the Sun is going to be quintile to Uranus here in Taurus. All right, so with this quintile to Uranus and Taurus, it's behind the scenes, feminine type of energy. I'm feeling like a dissolving, but in terms of whatever this aspect of change is, it feels like kind of what I said before in terms of just giving up and allowing and letting go, understanding that, yeah, okay, change has to occur. It's like the bull finally gave up. It's like, fine, fuck, whatever, I'll move wherever you want me to move. I won't be stubborn anymore. Like, we got to change. Let's just fucking go with it. Like, there's so much crazy shit going on. It's just, you have no choice but to go with the flow anymore. And again, with the quintile, it's very feminine energy. It's that flowing energy, but we're dealing with behind the scenes energy, faded type of energy. It's like I said, we never really had a choice. We need to change. The change has occurred or is occurring because it needs to, because we were deceived in the first place in terms of what we think or believe to be real now. Okay, so, and that's why that aspect, because this can deal with fate, that aspect of fate or from another realm kind of coming through, that feminine vibe coming through, that creativeness coming through, that needs to occur, that is like, yeah, this is happening whether you like it or not. Like, this has to happen because you've been manipulated, lied to, etc. Crazy shit has to happen so that we can actually change and move away from what we have been used to, what we thought was practical, because it never really was. All right. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, okay? Let's It's just what's coming through. All right, so we've reached the end of the week here. I do want to touch on, of course, Mercury entering shadow. So I just want to kind of show you how we can kind of see this here. So Mercury does enter shadow here, I don't remember the exact degree, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to pull this up. We're going to load up the event navigator here. So we're going to go direction changes. Mercury, what is going on, computer? There we go. So Mercury goes retrograde March 15th. So if we kind of pull up this chart, if I click on it here, we can see Mercury will go retrograde at 9 degrees 35 minutes of Aries. Now if we pull this up again, we're going to go direction changes. Mercury direct April 7th, 5:07 a.m. And that will be Mercury at 26 degrees 49 minutes of Pisces. So now I am going to go back to my lunation cycles here. We're going to go back to the moon. We're going to go back to Saturday. Okay. So we can see that later on in the day here, Mercury has already entered shadow. So it was at 26 degrees. I already forgot the minutes. 26 degrees, whatever. So we're at 27:56. So it's probably earlier on in the day on Saturday here, and we can even go back hours if you want to see. Oh, this might be a while because, okay, you know what, you get the idea. I'm not gonna go back. All right, but you get the idea. Mercury is entering shadow here, starting off in Pisces. We'll eventually go retrograde in Aries and come back. Okay, so for the next basically 14-15 days, Mercury will be in pre-shadow. So you have to remember whatever is coming up during this time frame, starting on Saturday, March 1st, towards when Mercury will go retrograde, basically right after that full moon lunar eclipse, is going to be, whatever comes up is going to be highlighted throughout the retrograde again. So whatever happens during the shadow period, going to be highlighted during the retrograde as well. And since we're entering into eclipse season, whatever big faded stuff or whatever is going on surrounding this eclipse season that is coming up is likely to be highlighted through that Mercury retrograde as well, because we're having those two eclipses basically happening within that Mercury retrograde. The Mercury will go direct after the second eclipse and then be in post-shadow period. So this eclipse and retrograde season is kind of like maybe tying itself together in some way like that as well. Or, you know, maybe not. Well, I'll have to look at this as we go into it and see how that's going to happen. I just want to bring that up as we are heading into Mercury shadow, so just, you know, be forewarned that what is happening now, starting on Saturday, those themes that are occurring are likely to reappear again throughout the retrograde, as well as in the post-shadow period after the eclipse season, and that we are heading into eclipse season. So with that Mercury retrograde and eclipse season and all like certain things starting to shift, planets going direct, retrograde, etc., there's a lot happening, not just in this week, but also throughout the month of March as well. So we're kind of heading into, one word I've heard was like power month. March will be a power month. Of course, we're going to have the sun entering Aries as well, which is going to be interesting. You know, that Mars energy, power month, I guess, but through eclipses, I'm feeling like it's not just that. It's just going to be a power month in general, just due to these shifts that are starting now and the eclipses and everything else. So I'll just keep that in mind. I'll bring it back to me here. Okay, so this has probably turned out to be a fairly long video. I appreciate you all for watching and making it this far. If you have made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments. That way I know that you're a real one. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.